Welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. On this week's episode, we have Michael Wood. Michael is the recruiting coordinator at South Alabama. He's had a ton of experience coaching at every level of the college game, from JUCO now all the way to Division I. One of the best guys in the game as well. Like, in all seriousness, I've gotten to know him pretty well this past year. So he's just a great guy. And in this episode, he breaks down and really gets into detail of like what he's looking for on the recruiting trail. You know, even like from in between innings to preparation before the game, from a junior college standpoint, from a Division I standpoint. So if you're a parent or a player out there listening who wants to kind of get inside the mind of a Division I college recruiting coordinator who's also had the experience at all the other levels, this is going to be a great episode for you. So hope you enjoy this episode with Michael Wood. All right, we now welcome onto the podcast Michael Wood. Michael is the recruiting coordinator at South Alabama. Michael, thanks for coming on today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
So I think this is going to be a really fun episode. I think it's going to be a beneficial one for a lot of people. And I think the main reason, well, is going to be you, but it's going to be because you have a wide variety of experience coaching in college, from the junior college ranks. Now you're doing Division I. You've coached summer collegiate leagues and things like that. But let's start even before all of that. Let's go back to Woody as a player. As a player growing up, like, did you ever think you would be a coach? Like, were you somebody who be like, oh, that's a future coach on the field right there, or like people thought of you as a coach, like as a player? Was that something that you
Yeah,
were like?
yeah, I had stats of a good coach, meaning I wasn't a very good player. I mean, so I think, I always loved baseball. So if I wanted to stay in baseball, I think I needed to figure out something else to do other than be a player. But yeah, that's something that I had a coach tell me once. You had stats of a good coach,
A
and
coach
that
told you
holds
that when you were
true.
a player?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, no, it was right when I got done playing. One of
Yeah, I
my
was like,
first
man, that
jobs,
guy is savage.
ruthless.
Ruthless. Yeah, ruthless.
No,
Where
he told
where
me, he
did you
said,
grow up?
upstate New York, so right in between Syracuse and Rochester.
Oh, heck yeah. Are you a Syracuse fan?
Growing up, big time
Basketball?
Syracuse fan. Syracuse basketball, Syracuse football. Mom went to Syracuse. We had season tickets, the whole ordeal back when they were good. So
Is it still
hopefully,
the Dome? Is that where they still play?
yeah, it's what is it now? The JMA Wireless Dome instead of
Okay.
Carrier Dome. It used to be the Carrier Dome.
That's right. My stepdad actually went to Syracuse, so I've been to a Syracuse basketball game before
Okay.
too. Jim Boeheim, is he still coaching?
He's not.
Okay.
He retired maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe.
Gosh, he was there. He was a
But
legend though.
he was a legend. A lot of
So
wins.
what's it like growing up in upstate New York, Syracuse area when it's cold, especially a lot of times during the spring season? Like, what's the baseball environment like up there from a player standpoint? Is it just brutal?
A lot of indoor training, and you're doing clinics and stuff. I remember as a kid, lessons. I remember as a kid, like always trying to want to be year-round baseball player. Well, you had to kind of improvise. So I would try to find. I had a great hitting instructor, Matt Dreyer. He was in Rochester, New York. So I always go up there a couple times a week and try to hit and train and improve my skills. Yeah, it's tough. Once it gets this time of year, there's no option of going outside. The high school season starts up, and it's like maybe towards the end of the year, you start getting some warm weather. Not ideal. There's challenges. There's definitely certain ways to work around it, but challenging.
And then after you get done playing, obviously you're growing up in the New York area. Like, what's next? Like, where's college? Like, kind of take me through the whole Michael Wood journey.
Yeah, as probably won't be too exciting as a player. I played junior college for 2 years at Jefferson Community College, and I was able to get on the field right away and play, so I enjoyed it. And 2 years at a Division II school, Davis and Elkins College in Elkins, West Virginia. Graduated from there. I knew I wanted to get into coaching, so there was an opportunity in Canton, New York, Division III school, St. Lawrence University. I was able to get my master's degree and start my coaching journey, I guess. And the whole time I got to get down south. I got to get down to Florida. Played in some collegiate summer leagues in Florida, and I fell in love with it. So that was kind of what led me to my first taste, I guess, of high level baseball at Northwest Florida.
Going back to, so Division III baseball, that was your first coaching stop. Have you been at or played or coached at every level?
I had Division I, II, III, JUCO. Yeah. I
Wow.
have seen, I guess, a wide variety of of levels.
So what would be what are in your opinion, like, what's the differences between the levels? Because I think this would be really helpful for parents because and players who are listening to this, because I think a lot of times people think the higher the level, the better the baseball automatically, right? The higher the level, the higher the status, right? And so it's like you're the perfect person to be able to like explain like maybe that is true, maybe it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it varies on the player more so than, like the level of baseball. Like for me, it's how serious the player's going to take it at each level. Sometimes at the Division 3 level, the dream and goal for those guys isn't always professional baseball, and it's kind of there's no plan B. That might not even be their plan A. Their plan A might be the academic piece. At the junior college level, depending on where you go, I think my first stop at the junior college level was awesome. I'm appreciative for it. But there were some guys who kind of just wanted to keep playing baseball, and that was their opportunity to continue playing baseball beyond high school. And then a totally different side of that is the Northwest Florida, which is Division 1 junior college baseball, all NJCAA, but it was a totally different game. It felt like from what I was playing my first 2 years as a player, those guys were determined to be professionals, and nothing else mattered besides getting better at baseball and hopefully being a draft pick one day. But in terms of that's what I would say is the biggest difference. In every level that I've been at, it seems like there's certain expectations from each individual player that comes along with, where they're at. I guess the determination to be really good and focus on, the extra work, stuff like that.
So it sounds like it's really about the long-term goals of the player, like, that's the biggest separator of the levels, outside of obviously some of the maybe that's another question maybe you can hit on is, like, you mentioned the mentality of the player that separates
For
them
sure.
from the levels, like, Northwest Florida versus that Division 3 you were at. What about the skill level?
Big jump in skill level. I don't know if that was necessarily region, just being in New York versus coming down here to the South. I think that probably plays a big part in it. The level of competition growing up playing high school baseball in the state of Florida or the Southeast in general compared to the Northeast, I think there's a difference. So I think the region has something to do with that. But in terms of the talent level, it's quite a big jump, from seeing, maybe Sunbelt baseball compared to, Division 3 baseball in New York. They throw a lot harder. They hit it a lot further. And honestly, the skills are just developed a little bit more, in terms of as little as the base running to playing catch. Like it's much higher level catch play, for example. So it's quite a big difference.
Do you attribute that to them just being able to play more outdoors year round at a younger age?
Yes, but I actually think it's more so the competition they're playing against. It's cliche, iron sharpens iron, but like when you're growing up playing at some of these bigger high schools in the southeast that have draft picks and Division 1 talent all over the field, and you're growing up playing against those instead of maybe in different parts of the country where you're kind of the big dog and you're not really able to challenge yourself in a high school season, until maybe you get to the travel circuit or something like that. Yeah, it's like I said, it's cliche, iron sharpens iron, but when you're playing against high level talent, if you have the right makeup and you determination to get better, then you're going to figure out a way to continue to get better so you can stand out.
From a recruiting standpoint, when you're at a school like Northwest Florida, like, are you pretty much are you going after D1 kickbacks? Are you going after, high school kids who maybe had some grade issues? Like, what's typical for a top college junior baseball program? Like, who are they going after?
I think a lot of it, especially in the Panhandle Conference or high level Division 1 junior college baseball, and I heard this all the time, they rely on those Division 1 kickbacks, those guys who weren't going to play at their Division 1 school and end up going to junior college for reps and at bats. And I'm not saying that's, not accurate. It is in some sense. But recently, you look back on, some of the successes we had at Northwest Florida. I mean, the proof's in the pudding is you can go back and look. Like we had a lot of success the past 2 years that I was there, winning back-to-back Panhandle Conference championships and World Series berth. And it's like we did that with guys who were not kickbacks. They were high school players. I mean, fifth rounder and Mac Estrada, and left side of the infield were both high school guys. They never attended a Division I school. We were their college offer, Kendry Maduro and Colby Jones, and both those guys are in pro ball right now. And there's others as well. I think the biggest thing I looked at was that last year in 24, we had most of our most of our field is covered with high school players, and they came straight from high school. They were not Division I kickbacks. They were the right high school kid, and they had some traits, winning traits, and they were the right guy. And sometimes I think not all, but sometimes kids that do feel like they're dropping down to the junior college level from the maybe Division I level or high level, Division I, SEC, ACC, that Power Four conference level, there's almost something where they feel like they shouldn't be there, and they are quote unquote dropping down. And sometimes that high school kid is just grateful that he's going to get the opportunity to play every day and recognizes that everybody's got a different path.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It kind of that similar thing I think happens on the professional route where you see guys who maybe get released from an organization, affiliate ball, and then they'll go and play indie
Sure.
ball. And they kind of have that same mindset. Oh, I'm dropping down. The competition's going to be a little bit less. And then they end up realizing the competition's not less. It's even more cutthroat here. So you don't produce, the manager's hired and fired based on wins and losses. And so some,
Yeah,
random college kid, like you said, who's just hungry to get a chance comes in there and just takes your spot and you get cut from some kid who just, was at some Division II college. So yeah, it's the same
for
concept.
sure.
But so for those specific kids, I'm kind of intrigued by this. So obviously, you're talking about guys who are in professional baseball now, and you mentioned a guy who was a fifth round pick, and it sounds like out of high school, he didn't. I mean, he ended up going to a junior college, and this was in a hotbed of it being in Florida. Did he not have? Did those kids? Were they not getting recruited by anybody? Were they just overlooked? Like, how did they get to the point where they were playing in a junior college versus a Division I out of high school when they were clearly talented enough to play somewhere at
For
Division
sure.
One?
Some of them were getting recruited by other schools, but for one reason or another, maybe the scholarship gets pulled at the last minute, and then it's late in the process. Division Ones don't have room for them, so maybe junior college is their only option. But still, even when you think about that, it's like, well, some of these kids were professional baseball players, so they weren't far away from helping a high major Division I program. So that was the case on a couple guys. I definitely don't want to sell it as these kids weren't being recruited at all. They were good baseball players and sought after. But like I said, for one reason or another, when we talk about the right fit and the right kid, they chose the junior college route for whatever reason. And it worked out for them.
What's the biggest differences now that you've coached at every level? What's the biggest difference between just from a practice standpoint at the junior college level and then the Division I level?
Probably the length.
I had a
I
feeling you were
know
gonna
it.
say that.
Yeah, the length, the duration of the practice, and everyone's aware of like the hour limits in Division I baseball, so it's definitely, there's restrictions and stuff and guidelines. There are not at the junior college level, which makes it attractive for kids to, you know, go there and feel like they're, maybe getting a little bit more time with the coaching staff. But I would say the duration of the practice. At the Division I level, there's a lot more resources where I think more, especially, at a place like South Alabama with the resources that are available to these guys, they're able to improve. It might not be on the field, but they're doing something to improve their overall game um, as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, first of all, do you think it's beneficial? Like, do you think from a skill development standpoint, more time equaled more development? Did you see that firsthand versus now at the Division I level? Like, if you had the option right now and like there were no rules at all at the Division I level, would you replicate the same amount of time you guys practice at the junior college level at the Division I level?
Not necessarily. No. You have to be intelligent about the work as well. I mean, there's great stories and great success stories of people just, going, I guess, head on and just working and working and working until you figure it out, even though it might not be the most efficient way of going about it. And I think in Northwest Florida, we had figured out a way to be efficient with it. But shoot, man, not necessarily. Not the duration of that, like there's different parts of the game that we feel like we can help guys out with that are not necessarily on the field or in the cages, in the weight room, whatever. There's different areas that we feel we can help them out with. And that doesn't include, 3, 4 hour practices, where it might not be the most efficient way to improve these guys.
Parents, are you tired of spending money going from showcase to camp, not even knowing if a coach is even looking for your son's position or even knows his name? One of the reasons that I started my college baseball recruiting service is to help guide families throughout the recruiting process so you're not having to waste money and time going from showcase or camp to camp. If you're interested in hearing more about how I can help your son, head to patrickjonesbaseball.com and fill out the form. That's patrickjonesbaseball.com. Fill out the form right on the homepage, and I'll be in touch. All right, back to the podcast. What's the main thing you learned being at Northwest Florida? Because I feel like the last time we talked, you feel like you that was like kind of your foundation. I feel like at least that's how it kind of came across to me. Is like you learned a ton of stuff about recruiting there and just coaching in general. Like what were some of the main things that you learned when you were at Northwest Florida from a
Yeah,
recruiting?
I didn't know how to spell recruiting. When I so, like when I got there, um, it was I mean everything I owed, in terms of where I'm at today. And the recruiting was the coaching staff that was there, Coach Martin, and everything that he was obviously just giving me the opportunity. He won't take credit for any of it. Definitely wouldn't be in the position I am today without him. And man, it was more so the recruiting habits. That I learned being out on the road a lot and just going out and watching baseball. I think everybody has their own philosophy or style, certain things they look for, but it's all, I mean, just like everything, a lot of things in this profession, it's plagiarism. You take different things from different coaches and there's nothing that I learned there that I feel like I invented or anything. You start learning as you're out more. But definitely in the recruiting realm, it was Northwest Florida. I got an opportunity to go out and be on the road as much as I want. There was no Division I rules there, so you know you could be out whenever you wanted. In terms of the recruiting,
What was the big recruiting mistake you made?
sometimes you fall in love with the I guess two things. This is a two-part answer. You fall in love with either rankings or you listen to other people. I guess I'm contradicting myself a little bit because I always would want to listen to people and hear people out. But man, when you're recruiting and you're somebody who's going to make a decision on a player, you have to formulate your own opinion and trust your gut. And I know that sounds maybe cliche too, but I think the mistake I made early on was like somebody told me, this kid's a good player. And, it's like, all right, well, I'm going into it. This kid's a good player. Like, you want to sign him, you're going to recruit him. And it's like, well, maybe you don't think he's actually a good player. And, you can't just listen to, what other people are saying about a certain player or certain they have their own philosophy. You can take things from it. But that was the biggest mistake I made like 2022 when I first started recruiting was like trying to listen to people, try to listen to everybody and not formulating my own opinion on players.
That's a great answer. I appreciate you sharing that. So when you go and watch a player now, like let's say for example, I say to you, I said, Woody, I got a kid. He's great. You need to go watch him play. What's your mindset now going in? Is your like mindset like I have zero expectation at all?
I don't know about expectation. Um I s- I would expect him to be a good player, and there's certain things that I'm going to look for on the field. I think where I've had the most growth recruiting is trying to learn more about the player before I even go see him play or immediately after I want to know everything about the player. And there's certain things, certain traits that other people will help you out with finding out about the player. So there's obviously certain traits that I'm going to look for and that, I'm able to see on the field or, in conversations with a kid. But there's other traits that maybe as a coach or as a recruiter, you're not able to figure out and now there are other people that you have to reach out to, maybe people that have spent more time around the kid that will give you those answers.
I'd assume you mean like from a makeup standpoint.
For sure. For sure. Makeup standpoint, and that's broad too, but like work habits and even things that go on every day in practice. You might go out and watch a kid and he catches 3 barrels. This kid finds barrels. Does he? Talk to his
Yeah.
coach, see what it's like every day in practice. Maybe he just had a really good day. I'm not trying to look at it from a negative standpoint, but the positive flip side on that is like, this kid did chase a little bit. And it's like, coach might tell you that he just had a bad day. He never
Mhm.
chases.
That's kind of like you go to the future games, right? And, you're watching a kid the entire summer, you're following a kid the entire summer, and then he goes there and he does like either like you said, exceptionally well or like really bad. And but the reality is like that's such a small sample size of like what he does. So it's easy to just judge the one inning he pitched right at the futures games, like, oh, this kid's
Yeah.
a for sure thing or whatever. And it's like, well, I mean, that's a pretty small sample size.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, how but I guess the other side, this is what makes the recruiting in college a little bit more difficult than professional is you can only see you don't have the budget and the time to go and just fly here and there and see guys all the time. So how do you go about I mean, how many times do you actually see a guy before you're like, I'm all in? And maybe it is a little bit dependent on the player, of course, but I mean, on average, what would you say?
Probably 3 times on average would be my honest
For
answer.
pitchers and position players?
Yeah,
Okay.
for both. I mean, 3 times for pitchers, and you're trying to get anywhere from 10 to 15 at bats for a position player, and hopefully a few games, defensively as well. I think that's the basic answer. If I was going to go into it a little bit deeper, that's the point of doing your research on players and doing your homework is, like I said, the people who are around him a lot more than the 3 times that I'm able to see him on a field, or the high school coach, the travel coach, and being willing to reach out and listen to what they might have to say, I think is super important. One of the biggest things that I learned when I first got into recruiting is talking to the high school coach. I don't know if it's extinct. I'm not here to say if that way of going about recruiting is extinct. I don't know. It's something that I always live by.
So you still talk to the high school coach?
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
before the travel coach?
Depends. Yeah, it depends. Not necessarily any order, but yeah, I'm trying to talk to both.
Well, I feel like high school is closer to what college will be like than travel ball, right? Because in high school, I mean, one, like winning matters. I mean,
Mhm.
right? And then the other thing too is some kids, it's like if you're at a really good high school program and you don't play well, like you're on the bench. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's not a situation where it's just you're in the lineup no matter what. So I do think that the high school I hope it never goes away. Like I hope we always have high school baseball because I think it's the
Yeah.
closest thing to college in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, sometimes with travel baseball, and this isn't a knock or anything, but with travel baseball, sometimes the kids change so much that what the things that I'm looking for when I call a travel coach, they might not be able to give me that answer because they've only had that certain player for 2 tournaments.
Yeah.
It's not the day and age where the kid kind of grows up with that travel organization all the way through and through. Those they're far, few and far in between. So that's why maybe if I were to put it in order, I would definitely say high school first because, like I said, sometimes they're not with the travel organization for more than a tournament or two. Certainly, some exceptions where kids stick it through, you know, all the way from the time that they're 10, 11 years old to by the time they graduate high school, they've been with the same travel organization, same coach that knows them, knows them well and their family well.
I like that. I think to your point, yeah. I mean, I think that the high school is a no doubter. So you get a really good high school coach who is honest and has the trust of college coaches that can definitely move the needle. When it comes to like the new recruiting rules, the NCAA rules, the 34-man roster, scholarships, that's kind of a separate thing. But really the 34-man roster, how does that go about changing your recruiting philosophy?
It doesn't really.
No.
I'm not trying to like bow out of the question, but it doesn't really. I haven't experienced any change. And again, not to keep bringing up Northwest Florida, but I think in Florida Junior College, there's a 28-man roster limit. So I don't know if that experience, trying to build teams with 28-man roster limit kind of helped me prepare for here, South Alabama. It probably did in more ways than one. That's maybe a closer roster size than other coaches have had to adjust to, meaning to adjust them to the 34. So that might have been something, but it really hasn't changed the way at all for me.
Yeah, it makes sense that yeah, because you're already used to that 28-man roster. Because one of the things that I've noticed personally is and maybe this is because I've seen just looking from like a 10,000-foot view, is I see now a lot of coaches who would bring in 45 guys in the fall, and they'd see a guy one time maybe or offer him. They just watch video or offer him. Those same coaches are now very patient now, 27 class, and I think a big part of it too is like each institution, it's depending on how many players you're like they tell you you're allowed to bring in. Like some schools, it's like you're only allowed to bring in 34 at the start of the fall. Other schools, maybe it's 40, like whatever it is.
Mhm.
So I think that's plays a role in it as well, but that's a interesting point that you came from a constrained roster, and so that probably did shape how you've recruited. Like you didn't come from like, "Hey, we're gonna bring in 60 guys in the fall," type of a thing.
Yeah, everybody wants to be patient and not rush any decisions for sure in recruiting, I would think. I'm definitely no different. I just, there's certain clues that you get from, like I said, talking with coaches or other players even, and then going to watch a kid play and, you fall in love with it or something. Then when you know, I guess. I don't.
Here's a question I'm curious about because I've talked to a few people about this who scouted a long time. Doug Lauman was one guy. I've had him on the podcast before. I need to get him back on again. He was a scouting director for the White Sox. He's retired now, so he was there when they were good with the World Series. All right, so not now, but he said that he was in or out on a player after he watched them warm up, and he said obviously I'd stay around, I'd watch the game and things like that. But he said that very rarely would his opinion change. So I guess my question to you is how early are you in or out on a player, and how often does your opinion change after you watch him those 3 games?
To answer the second part first, I would agree 100%. It's so tough to change my opinion and right, wrong, or indifferent. I've noticed that from experience. When I kind of have my opinion on a player, rarely ever, like I trying to think back, but like there's not a lot of times where, I've gone back and been like, I'm gonna I was wrong there, or, I didn't see that. And like I said, totally right, wrong, or indifferent, but it's tough to change your, I guess, for reaction, first impression. And the first part of the question was,
Well, no, I was asking about just kind of I think that was the main thing was just like how after you watch a player, right? So, you said you normally watch a player for 3 games on average, right?
yeah,
But, like,
yeah,
how soon are you in or out on that player? Is it after the warm-up
right,
game
right, right,
1,
right.
or is it after the first game? Like, how when do you get to like, "Yep, I'm in or out. I'm still gonna watch, but I'm in or out."
Yeah, probably, probably sometimes very quick.
Very quick.
And I definitely agree with the warm up side of it. Like, there's too many, like I said, there's too many things that leave clues in terms of, I don't know if this sounds cliche or not, but showing up to the field like with energy, the way you play catch, if you're an infielder or catcher or pitcher, how diligent you are in your routine, I think is huge, which is tough, man. Travel ball, like, the environment you're in there, sometimes you don't have the time, for one, to go about your routine, if you're a pitcher or a position player, but definitely a high school game, and you're just able to see how serious they take their preparation. And that's something that if you are interested in recruiting a kid on makeup, well, if they're not serious in their preparation, then I think you can be out on them right away. No matter what they do, we all know how serious you do have to take your preparation, and that can also tell you how much, how much passion, how much love you have for the game. So there's so many things that just watching warmups can tell you about a player. And if you want them in your program and that stuff's important to you, then if they leave clues that they're not serious about it, then you're going to be out, regardless of what they do in the game.
Do you make it obvious that you're there watching a player, or players know you're there watching, or do you kind of, like, pretend not to pay attention?
I think I'm pretty obvious. I've definitely heard of people doing both. There's the not telling the specific player that you're coming to watch him type thing to see if he does the right things. Like, I don't know what's right or wrong there. Most of the time, I make it pretty obvious because maybe I'm not a good multitasker. So I have to really lock in on, what I'm watching. So yeah, try not to try not to talk a lot to other people or anything. I'm kind of there to do the job and watch the player. So I probably make it pretty
Pretty
obvious.
obvious. All right, well, I'll make sure not to talk to you, when I see you at a game since you're locked in. But going back to what I was asking before, when you were talking about you were talking about, like, how soon you're in or out on a player, it sounds like you're in or out on a player game 1, let's just say, at the end of game 1. So, why go back and watch those next 2 games if your opinion doesn't change?
It could be something as simple as like competition.
Mm,
You know, I mean, when you're watching a certain player and they have a great game, you do also have to put it in perspective. Maybe like, he wasn't facing the best arm or the best look there as a pitcher, maybe was facing a weak lineup. So you want to go back. The second thing you're searching for is like, did they encounter any adversity? Maybe you watched him the first time and you really liked him because he was dominant. He had 3 or 4 extra base hits, or he went CG. Well, there's other certain things that I look for in a player. And, again, cliche, we all know you're gonna face adversity at some point. So you go back and see maybe this time, this next look, this second or third look, they're gonna run into some adversity, whether it be, a better team, an umpire, bad call, bad defense behind them if you're a pitcher, or bad luck at the plate, hitting a couple balls hard. So you look for other things, not necessarily just performance based the second and third time. I
is
think
that
honestly, you really start to recruit them after the first time.
Mm, okay. Is that tough to evaluate when it comes? Because I go back and forth on this stuff when it comes to, like, you're showing emotion or whatever if you're frustrated or whatnot, and it's like, maybe you're dealing with failure. Like, how do you balance the fact that these kids are 16, 17 years old and they're still gonna grow and mature and things like that versus like, hey, this might be just a, not a good fit for our program from an attitude standpoint.
That's why you gotta do the homework. Like, sometimes kids will, have a bad reaction, and I don't even wanna say kids, coaches do it. You see coaches across all levels of this game that have maybe reactions that they're not proud of sometimes. I think that's just a matter of caring. So, I'm not quick to judge anybody, in terms of their character on a reaction, whether it's an adult or a player. I think, like I said, you could flip that into a positive, like, hey, that kid cares. He's upset about a strike three call that, well, he really wanted to come through for his team. So I'm not, I'm not so quick to judge in that realm. I think my quick judgment comes from, like I said, how serious, how energetic you are, just the love and the passion to be there playing baseball. That's my quick judgment, and you can tell pretty quickly, I think.
In between innings, what do you watch for anything in between innings? And by the way, any of these questions, don't feel like you have to be like, "Yeah, I do," just because I asked the question. It's more so I think this is stuff I think it's good for people to hear it from the horse's mouth, you being a college recruiting coordinator. So, in between innings, like, are you watching for stuff? And if so, what are you watching for?
Yeah, absolutely. Just being a past infield coach, infield guy, absolutely always watching in between innings. And obviously the catcher throwdowns. But that's something I learned early too, was the in between innings stuff for infielders is so important to me in terms of coaching it. But if it's going to be important to me when a kid gets on campus and coaching it, then it definitely has to be important in the recruiting process. And, I can elaborate like in terms of what I mean, the kind of lazy throw across the diamond or whatever from a third baseman, or just flat out missing a ball, thrown from a first baseman. I think that's pretty ridiculous. So again, goes back to the kind of seriousness, how much focus you have, and not wasting a rep. And man, like I said, being an infield coach in the past, it was always something that I wanted to coach and make note about, whether it was a game or a practice, how serious you take those ground balls in between innings. And catchers, same thing. Like, it's important, and kids have to realize it's important because they might not have a base runner to throw out and show their 188 pop time. Like, well, show the 188 pop time in between innings every single throw. You got seven or whatever, how many turns at it. So that's your time.
Yeah, you were throwing 1/8s. Yeah, that's I mean, that's not a showcase 1/8, by the way. That's an in-game.
Right. That's
Last
right.
yeah, last question for you. South Alabama, like, if I'm a player, I'm a high school kid, why would I wanna go to South Alabama? Like, what do you feel like is the benefits that you guys provide to players, high school players that, you could share with everybody?
The tradition and history here, I mean, when you talk about like any across any level, there's not a lot of programs in the country that can say they have, almost 30 big leaguers and MLB All Stars. Brendan Donovan was an MLB All Star this past year. I think he was up for a Silver Slugger.
You was South
David
Alabama?
Freese, yeah,
Oh,
Brendan Donovan. Um, You got David Freese I think he was a World Series MVP. He was at South Alabama. Luis Gonzalez, like I'm young enough to remember being a Yankees fan. He broke my heart in 2001. Like
yes, that broken bat.
yeah, the base it up the middle that won the World Series. Like that's our indoor facility.
Really?
Um, the tradition and history that's here is second to none. And then in terms of now, you're playing in Sun Belt, which is one of the better conferences across the country with draft picks every year. And man, if you're a kid that stuff's important to you, and getting drafted and playing at a high level, which we hope is to a lot of kids, then it is a great place. But um, the people, man, I mean, Mark Helvey's kind of been there and done that too. You talk about winners and guys who have won before. He's national champion at South Carolina, and um, shoot, man, you want to play for a guy who's been there and done that and can kind of show you the ropes. So on top of being a great human and having great people around him, he knows what it takes to get to the level that hopefully these guys want to get to.
Aw love that. Yeah, I had no idea, 30 big leaguers, that's crazy. I didn't know that off the top of
I
my
think it's
head.
like it's 28, 29, it's close to 30 big leaguers.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Woody, I appreciate you coming on today, man. Ton of fun, and we'll definitely have to have you back on again.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah, ton of fun, man. I can't wait to follow you this upcoming season in South Alabama. And if someone wants to follow you or follow South Alabama, like what's the best place to do that? Is that Twitter? Where should they go?
Yeah, Twitter, definitely South Alabama baseball, and I'll probably have my Twitter handle up on the South Alabama page at some point or something. But definitely South Alabama baseball on Twitter, Instagram. You can find us pretty much anywhere.
Love it. Thanks for
But
coming
I
on, brother.
appreciate you too. I wanted to make sure I tell you that you've been doing a great job and everything you've been doing for our game. So I know I appreciate that.
I appreciate it, man.